Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Christina Nelson Show. I am your host, Christina Nelson, and this is a wonderful, wonderful day and wonderful evening. And thank you for joining me today. Today, our topic is grief and going from grief to greatness, as is the title of the book that my next guest has written. And it's going to be a great show where we're going to learn a lot about grief and the journey, her testimony, the journey that she took to get to greatness from grief. And it is possible to overcome and get to a place where you are in a better headspace, so to speak. Grief is actually defined as deep sorrow caused by someone's death. And we will learn that it's not just about death, but other things that are of great loss to someone here. So I want to start off by saying, and you need to remember this, and I'll say it throughout the evening, but my key word, and just remember this key word is joy. That is my key word for tonight. And it's going to be very important at the end of this segment. So, joy. You know, I like to do some giveaways, guys. So, joy is the key word. Remember the word joy. And I'm saying it now. And I probably only say this right now at this point. So, anyway, so without further ado, I'm going to invite this sister up. Her name is Miranda K. Cobbs. Hello there. Oh, wait, you're okay.
There we
There we
go.
go.
Oh, good evening.
How are you today?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. Very excited to have you here this evening. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here as well.
Good, good, good. So, like, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from? What do you do?
Okay. Well, my name is Verenda Cobbs. I am a trained social worker. So I actually have my bachelor's and my master's degree in social work. And most of
Amazing.
my career, I have worked with youth and families, individuals that have experienced trauma. And that varies because I've been in different settings, including education, within the nonprofit arena, as well as in the community. And I, for a few years, did some mental health counseling as well. And so I'm very passionate about helping people to overcome adversity and to thrive instead of survive. I also have about 15 years of experience in ministry. And so I've been a senior pastor, assistant pastor, youth pastor, but I love God with all my heart. And so, kind of merging those two worlds together, the secular environment of serving the community and individuals, and then coming into being able to be a minister. And so it's been a unique journey, but super excited. I am originally from Norfolk, Virginia, but I currently live in the Richmond metro area,
Okay.
by way of Baltimore, Maryland. This is where my family is from. And my dad was in the military, so we moved around as he was stationed in different places in my early childhood, but we kind of planted ourselves in Virginia. So Virginia is home, 757, 804, RVA. All of that is home for me. And I just love people and am just in a place where I just really want to use my testimony to inspire others. And so thank you for having me tonight. I'm excited.
Oh, me too. Thank you. That was a great introduction. You wear many hats, but all kind of with the same in the same realm of helping someone and getting through certain situations. And I like that that you're so passionate about that. Someone said VA here. Hey, VA in the house. So we are going to just kind of dive right in there. You decided to share your journey of grief. So let's start with this question. Why grief? Why write your journey and be so transparent in your book?
Um, I will tell you that I have lived through a series of losses.
Okay.
Um, Starting early in my childhood with the loss of my dad, who
Mm,
passed away when I was 7, into losing various family members for different reasons, health related as well as just untimely death. And so I've always been very sensitive to how people feel when they have experienced loss because as an empath, which, many of us are, where we feel
hmm
other people's stuff, even as a child and a young adult, I always found myself comforting people. whether
Okay.
it was just with a hug or a smile or just sitting with people just to make them feel better.
Hmm.
I remember the funerals and the services and the bereavement, just kind of growing up and watching how the different women and men in my family handle those difficult things. But it was a little different as I began to get older. And so over the past few years, my family has experienced tremendous trauma as it
Hmm.
relates to grief and loss. And we've had some back to back losses that I explained to many as though the wind was knocked out of me, because as the one of the spiritual leaders in my family, people were looking to me to provide that emotional support as well as even assist with coordination of funerals and
Hmm.
helping people to understand how to navigate through the insurance process and what does the template for the funeral service look like and how can
Okay.
use whatever income they had to try to put those things together. And so it became overwhelming at one point, because at the same
Hmm.
time, I am still processing through my own experience. And so um, I could go on and on with that, but it hit home for me before the pandemic.
Wow.
Then, as a result of COVID, I found myself in spaces where people were reaching out for that same support from me that I
Hmm.
maybe had needed from them during different times because of the losses. And so it became a common theme in conversation as people were text messaging asking for prayer or calling and asking for words of comfort, or even colleagues that worked in the field with me that were experiencing those same things personally and professionally as they were helping people navigate. And it began to allow, like, just really make me really take a deeper look at what is grief and loss, and then how are we really coping with that as social distancing is coming into play, as we are watching the news and seeing just hundreds of thousands of individuals being impacted by COVID, and so
Mm.
while we were quarantining, I was writing and I was researching and reading and watching different things to try to really figure out what does that process look like, and at the same time individually going through my own journey of
Wow.
navigating through that. And I will tell you all that it was hard. It's still a process, and so my goal for writing the book was to share a little bit, and I didn't dig deep but just kind of surface share about that journey. But also, my goal was really to help people just to find that place where they can say, okay, somebody can relate to how I'm feeling,
Yeah.
somebody can understand, because many times, especially in the African American community, you don't have that liberty to share that you're struggling with your journey in any capacity. We're
Exactly.
taught to be resilient, we're taught to bounce back, to keep going, and those things. And so anytime you see vulnerability, a lot of times is displayed as weakness, And so what I wanted to do through my book is really let people know that that vulnerability makes you human, and it's not weakness, it's really strength. It's an expression for you to be able to say, I'm still dealing with my father's death. I'm still
Yeah.
dealing with the death of my friend. It still hurts every year around this time to navigate through the loss of my child. Those things are real experiences. And I really truly believe until we can identify that, it's going to be difficult for many of us to be able to truly live a life of peace.
That is so true. And I like everything you just said there. Especially the thing that stood out to me was the fact that everyone expected you to help them and you are still going through your own grief. And it's just like people, and I don't think people, some people are being selfish or not thinking about it, but I think they just the expectation is, well, you're the woman of God, you're the pastor, you're the minister, you're the grief counselor, you're supposed to help me, and not think about you um also dealing with it. Like, look, I lost him too. I lost my father too. I lost my grandmother too. I lost this person too. It hit me too. And it goes to show, like, my husband and I talk often about who encourages the encourager, who counsels the counselor, who goes through the grief process with the grief, with the one who usually is helping everyone else through that. So this book, if I can say, probably was a like a healing thing for you as well.
Absolutely, it was.
Mhm.
at various times during the book, I had to put it down because as I started writing, I was also reliving or processing through some of the experiences, and I wanted to go back to something you shared. For me, I saw it as an honor to be in a space where I could serve my family, friends, loved ones, and colleagues. I never looked at it as a burden. I looked at it as an honor, and I looked at it as an opportunity for me to show even myself my own vulnerability because, as I was preparing to preach, I was shedding tears. As I was, preaching, I was sharing moments with them and also letting them know that we are in this together through this process.
Hmm.
And so there are various times, I remember at my grandmother's service where it was almost unbearable for me to like stand up there at certain moments. And my cousin came and was like, I'm here.
Hmm.
Just his physical presence letting me know that he was there. Friends who drove from other areas to come and physically be there for me to look up, even though a tear was streaming down my face, to see a friendly face watching me. I just knew that support and love was there. I knew that
Absolutely.
comfort was there. Even if they didn't necessarily understand the load that I had, I found another, what's the word I want to say? I found a whole nother meaning of relationships and what that really looks like and what support really looks like and what authenticity really looks like.
Right.
Even for myself being a pastor, I had to come out of that pastoral space and just be Veranda and say, I miss grandma. I miss
Wow.
dad. I miss auntie, this is hard for me, during different moments with my family. They saw me cry. They saw me break down. They saw me, but they also saw me pray. They also saw me stretch my hands up to the Lord and say, Father,
Hmm.
I stretch my hands to thee, no other help that I know. They saw me have those really down days, but they also saw me have those days where I was encouraging others or saying, you know what, today's a better day. And so I found
Okay.
myself moving out of a facade and a mask into a place of real truth, for myself, you know what I mean? But also
Yeah.
for them. And my prayer was always that for them seeing some of that, that they would also realize that God was there for them and that they could reach out to him for that strength. Because there would be no way that I could stand in my own strength during those times, especially you having to eulogize your family
Wow.
member. There's no way you can stand in your own strength. Like that strength had to come from God. It came from God, and I look
Absolutely.
back and I'm like, it was you, Lord, that kept me
All the time.
through all of that.
Hmm.
Whew.
Wow. Wow, that's a mouthful right there. Like just having people there. And it's a good thing that you did have people there because there's a lot of people that did not have someone there and they're trying to navigate this grief process alone and they really just don't know what to do or what steps to take. In your book, you said that healing will take time and often be uncomfortable. That hit home with me. What do you mean by that? It takes time and is especially I know healing takes time. A
Mhm.
majority of us know that healing takes time, but what about the healing process is uncomfortable?
Whew. It's uncomfortable because you have to address it. You have to address how you feel, and those stages of grief become real. You have the denial stage, the bargaining stage. You have the stage where you're angry. You have the stage where you're depressed. You have the stage where you're trying to figure out if you're coming or going. And I share a lot about that in the book, but also I talked about those other things that are not visibly seen within the typical 5 stages of grief that we hear about often.
Yeah.
Those moments where you have the fog, where you're so busy trying to keep yourself busy and moving around, and people are like, are you good? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm great, but
Hmm.
really you haven't dealt with
Hmm.
the actual trauma of the loss. um Also just uncomfortable because you have to present yourself back at work again. You have to
Yes.
present yourself back in your social circles after you get those bereavement days. You still got to keep going through life, but the grieving process has not stopped. And so I had those moments where I woke up and I just did not feel great. Those moments where I'm so emotional, and we're going through the pandemic and I'm like, I have to turn a camera on and be present at work. And I'm
Mm.
crying maybe hours before work starts, you know what I mean? Or you hear a song and you're like, oh my gosh, that reminds me of so and so. Or the memories on social media come up and you see the pictures of you with your family members and friends and things of that nature,
Yeah.
and you're triggered. Or either somebody says, how are you doing? And you're really not okay. And you have to either decide if you're going to be honest or if you're going to say, yeah, I'm good. I'm hanging in there. I'm making it. You know what I mean? And sometimes that depends on the person or the day that they ask, you
Yeah.
know. And so it for me it was uncomfortable because I had to be more transparent in certain relationships,
Okay.
because there are people who know you and there are people who know you. And so the
Hmm.
people who knew me could see that I wasn't okay, and I couldn't say, "Oh, I'm good," because they're standing right there and they're like, "You
Hmm.
look okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then, no, actually, today is a tough day. You know what I mean? And not feeling shame for that, not feeling guilt for that. Like, I should be stronger, or I should be more resilient, or I should
Hmm.
get it together and get over it,
Oh,
but
wow.
realizing that, at some point, your true vulnerability needs to be a part of your testimony as well.
Hmm.
And hey, this is not a good day. And I experienced it a lot within the work setting and within the ministry setting.
Okay.
Early on, especially with the first few significant losses that I had during the, say, 2017, 2018, 2019 time frame. I was a senior pastor of a ministry, and so during that time, there were people who were in very close proximity to me. And so during that time was really tough, because I'm still pastoring. I have a
Hmm.
people who are looking to me for guidance, support, and I'm still going through the stages of grief. I'm having angry moments. I'm
Oh,
having
wow.
moments where I'm like trying to call my grandmother and realize, oh my gosh, she's not here. You got to hang up. She can't answer your phone call. You know what I mean? Because I call her every Sunday, and so I'm
Hmm.
in service, and I'm like, Dad, I can't call her, and then I'm having a moment in the car, you know.
Hmm.
And I remember one time where I was talking to one of my pastor friends on the phone, and it was a Sunday, and I had some one of my family members had passed away, and I called, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I can't breathe. I feel like I'm about to just like hyperventilate." And she was like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I don't even know where I'm at right now." So she's
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Pull over," and I'm like, "Okay, let me pull over," because I'm like, another loss. God, what
Yeah.
here? So it was uncomfortable for me to stand in front of my friend who was used to me being strong, and now she has to be strong for me. And so we sat at a picnic table, and she let me cry, and she hugged me, and
Uh,
she just let me sit there with her until I regrouped to get back in my car and transition home. And so those things were uncomfortable for me because I didn't want anybody to see that I was weak. I didn't want anybody to feel like, you're supposed to be a woman of God. Why you're not handling this better? You
hmm.
should be able to regroup. I even had one person say to me, a healed veranda is better than the broken veranda.
Oh,
Even in the midst of
wow.
what they knew that I had
Wow.
gone through. And that was like a pew, pew, a smack in the face for someone that I had supported through their vulnerable moments, but they could not also do the same. And so once I heard that, I was like, I have to write this book, because there are people who don't realize that this journey is tough. You know what I mean? And it is, there are books written about it, but has anybody really shared some of their real story about that? You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And so for me, overcoming was uncomfortable, you
That
know.
can be. That sounds uncomfortable. And I've had my share of grief and getting over death and everything. I haven't had one, praise God, that hit me hard, where I was just like, it was, and I guess I was talking to Tanya Coles was on my show not too long ago, and she was talking about trauma and how some people will look and say, well, um, your trauma, oh, that's it, that little bit. Oh, you lost your grandmother, I lost my grandmother and my grandfather, so they'll kind of try to minimize what you've gone through as if it wasn't as big. And she was talking about your trauma is your trauma, your grief is your grief, your what you gone through is what you've gone through and is real to you. How do you address people who may say, like you said, the girl, she's a healed a healed veranda is better than a broken veranda, but the broken veranda had to get to a place so that she can get to heal others.
Right. I'm going to be not transparent, but I'll share it generally.
Okay.
Some people had to be released from my life during that time,
Mm-hmm.
because I truly believe that when you go through any type of crisis or any type of very challenging or difficult situation, it unveils how people really feel about you at their core. And
Mm-hmm.
so I realized and understood that during my journey, there were people that could not continue on with me because they didn't have the ability, not just the support aspect, but the ability to empathize. And so it makes you, grief and loss makes you very sensitive to emotion, makes you very sensitive to how you're being treated. It makes you very aware of the dynamics in your relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had different seasons over the past few years where I had to step back and assess relationships. It assessed
Mm-hmm.
the solidity of the relationship, assess the validity of the relationship, assess, is this just somebody that I want in my life or somebody I need in my life? And so I had to really take some deep assessment
Yeah.
and work with, a coach, work with my
Okay.
mentor, to help me to begin to look at my relationships and make sure that the relationships that I was in were relationships that were adding value and real support to the spaces that I was in as I was navigating. Even as I began to move into my healing journey, really assessing, were these healthy relationships, were these healthy connections, or were these
Mm-hmm.
relationships that had motives and agendas, or that the season was just over. And so in those situations, when there were things that were said or done that hurt me, I had to address them. And
Mm-hmm.
if those addressing moments did not turn into a productive, healthy conversation, then I had to decide if this is a relationship that adds value to my life enough that I want to
Mm-hmm.
continue to work through, and that included a lot of different aspects, but boundaries were important.
Yeah.
So I had to reestablish boundaries. I had to set some boundaries. I had to make sure, and especially because I'm a social worker and a pastor, you
Oh
know,
wow. Yeah.
so I'm someone who's very conscious of what help and support and empathy and those things look like. And I had to begin to look at those things through the lens of my own relationships as it related to my journey. And I will tell you that it was such a blessing to go through that process because I found a whole new community of individuals and friends, and I have deeper relationships with family members and cousins and things like that that came as a result of those situations in which I had to say, okay, this relationship is over, or this connection has served its course, and you
Mm-hmm.
never want to go through that, especially as women. We love everybody and want to be in relationships. Dudes, they'll just keep it moving.
Yeah.
Us, we feel everything, and so I had to go through that process and grieve the losses of those connections and grieve the losses of those friendships, and also realize that people come into your life for a reason, a season, a lifetime. And where I was trying to go, some of those connections would have been detrimental to my
Mm-hmm.
healing. They would have been detrimental to me being able to be in the space that I'm in now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm grateful for every relationship. I'm where Joseph was when he said, "You intended to harm me, you meant it for my bad, but God meant it
Mm-hmm.
for my good, for the saving of many lives." And so I'm grateful that I had those things, those situations happen, because I feel like I'm a better social worker. I'm a better coach for those that are navigating through those difficulties. And I truly believe that it's just going to make me more relatable to those that I'm assigned to support, to encourage, and to help heal.
I love it. I love it. So this is kind of a two-part. In the beginning of the book, you were talking about Joshua, and his loss when he lost Moses, and of course we know it doesn't get deep into how he really felt, but you can kind of, because he was just like waiting and he didn't do what he was supposed to do, and God is like, all right,
Mhm.
it's time and everything. What do you say to people who say things like, so do you really overcome grief, or does it, I hate the term get over it, but that's what some people are saying. And it's almost like all right, it's time to get up and do what you're supposed to do and move forward, as you sometimes stated in the book, and move forward. But some people get frustrated with that healing journey. So how do you go through all of that?
Mhm. I truly believe that that healing journey is not supposed to be done alone, and so going back to Joshua, Joshua had an assignment, and his
Mhm.
mentor, spiritual advisor, his support, covering was now gone, and he now was left with a responsibility. And so there had to be some ownership taken, and also an awareness for him to see that he had a whole nother group of people that were looking up to him for that support. And so he had to have a support system as well. And God had to identify for him who that was so that he could move forward and navigate. We're not supposed to go through this journey alone. And I think
Mhm.
the second part of that is that it's important to look into grief counseling. It's important to look into if you need a life coach or someone to help talk you through it. It's important to have the value of mentorship,
Mhm.
and to have friends and people who can help pull you, I would say pull you up instead of over, and knowing that you don't overcome it just saying, "Oh, I'm over it now." Because I will tell
Mhm.
you, I have not arrived. I am still navigating each day. I'm still walking through this process. I still have moments. I
Absolutely.
still have times where I'm like, whoa, I definitely miss so and so. I even had a situation where in the workplace, one of the young people that I was working with, you know, committed suicide, and I had to deal with
Oh,
those
wow.
things too. And
Mm.
so it's a series of ebbs and flows. And I truly believe that the grief and loss process, the overcoming piece is that you continue to move forward by being resilient. You start over every day. I always say, don't isolate yourself for more than 24 hours. If you have a bad day the day before, then start over the next day. But starting over may look like you schedule an appointment with your therapist the next morning. Starting
Okay.
over may look like you saying, "Hey, I really need to be in a support group." Starting over may look like, "Hey, I need to get a life coach because these areas are triggering me and I need some accountability," or "I need a
Yeah.
mentor or have somebody to bounce stuff off of and check in with. I need to have a meeting or a conversation with my pastor or one of the elders at my church." Whatever that looks like for you. I need to schedule a date with my best friend, or me and my
Mhm.
husband. I just want to talk to my husband and, just kind of process how I'm feeling. But everybody's support system looks different. And I truly believe that when you have at least one to two go to people
Mhm.
that can help you navigate through those moments when you have the breakdowns of the thoughts or the feelings, then that is overcoming within itself.
Okay.
I looked up the definition for overcome when I saw that question. It means to, I can't even read my own handwriting. Basically, to deal with a problem or difficulty. And so you're able to conquer, to get better at, to prevail over and triumph over.
Okay.
And so Joshua had to be told several times, be strong and be of good courage.
Yeah.
Be strong, do not be afraid. And so
Mhm.
I could imagine him being like, "Lord, you serious? I'm still grieving." Like, give me some time. Like, can I
Mhm.
keep going? God is like, I got you, but you have to make a decision. Where do you want to be?
Mhm.
And I'll tell you that I remember when I had to make my decision to live,
Okay. Mm.
because it
Yeah.
it like I said, knocked the wind out of me. And I had one
Mm.
season where I just was like, was I supposed to also live through that? Am I
Wow.
supposed to still be here? And I heard the
Mm.
Lord say to me, "You are still alive, so live."
Mhm. That's good. That is good right there. So how do we, and you reference Ecclesiastes 3, 1 and 8. And I always love that whole passage when it's a time to die. I'm paraphrasing, time to live, time to die, time to heal, try to, kill, all of those things. There's a season for everything.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have to recognize when it's time to live.
Mhm.
So your season it wasn't time to die, it was time to live, like it says in Ecclesiastes. I love that. So
Mhm.
how do we, if you're on the other side of this, other side of grief, and your friend is going through the grief, how do you, because it can be, like you said, it's uncomfortable, but it's uncomfortable for people, other people too, on the outside looking in. How do we navigate through that as people who just say, my best friend lost someone, and how do I help her through it? How do you help other people through their process? I may not be a counselor, but
Mhm,
how am I going to be there for someone?
mhm. Um, I will share this that I had a few friends to have some significant losses during my time of grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And so you show up, and showing up sometimes means being quiet and
Mm-hmm.
just being present. Showing up sometimes means assessing what the need is and taking initiative and being there.
Mm-hmm.
Showing up sometimes means you saying, what can I do to help you? How can I support you during this time? Um,
Mm-hmm.
being very intentional about your words, because people don't want to hear, how are you holding up? How are you doing today? Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was God's time for her to go. Don't
Especially.
want to hear those types of things. But knowing, hey, I love you, just checking in. Is there anything I can do to support you?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you need to make this a little bit easier for you today? Let them get the tears out, let them get the moments out. And then you saying, I'm here with you. I'm here
Mm-hmm.
for you know but being very mindful not to judge the person who's experiencing it is key. And it's
Mm-hmm.
hard because you don't always know what to say.
Right.
I'm sure that I've probably said some stuff that wasn't sensitive or as therapeutic, but you just do your very best. Don't try to take on more than what they are requesting, because sometimes that
Mm,
overbearing pushiness can be annoying for people who are dealing with what they're dealing with.
right.
Your presence is so much more valuable, especially after the service,
Mm,
because that's the part that people don't share about, because you have to go through the
mhm.
loved one's belongings sometimes, depending upon the relationship. You have to sort through their bills. Sometimes you have to go and clean up the home that they lived in.
Oh,
You
wow.
have to also purge some things within your own home. And so all of those things are a part of that process for individuals. But the check-ins, they're usually more frequent as you're going through the initial, I call it the initial trauma, where you
Mhm,
finding out what took place. And this goes deeper even into someone who's just lost a job, who's just lost a child, who's just found out their spouse was cheating on them, someone who has gone through a house fire. Those same emotions are manifesting during those times as well. And so you being a friend or a colleague or support to someone sometimes just looks like you actually physically going to the location that they're at, or
mm,
calling and saying, hey, I'm just checking in. I'm checking in. Is there anything I can do to support you?
yes.
Is there something that you need? Do you have X, Y, and Z? What can I do to take something off of
Mhm,
your plate? Is there anything I can do to assist you during this time? And be prepared for whatever they may ask. If they say nothing, say, okay, well, please keep me in mind as you're thinking about what you have to do. I'm here
mhm,
for you. I'm here to support you. um,
right.
After that funeral, and after the smoke kind of clears and they're trying to put everything together, showing up. A lot of people, the young people that I work with, say that people will ghost them, meaning they'll text and call and the person is MIA. That time frame is where people really need your presence and your prayers and your support, your physical support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. And so obviously you mentioned some things other than death. So obviously grieving isn't not just, doesn't occur just when someone passes away.
Mhm.
So what other ways, like there's divorce and like you said, a house fire. I didn't even think about that. Like a house fire, you lost something, you lost everything. For some people, you lose everything. So the grieving process is probably the same for those things as it is for death, and losing a friendship, losing people that you had to let go, and
Mhm.
all those kind of things. So I guess the grieving process is pretty much the same in those things, in that aspect, than it is even in death.
Absolutely. And for that process, whatever the case may be, whatever situation you're dealing with, and sometimes people are going through multiple things at one time, depending
Hmm.
upon what's happening. You want to identify your
Hmm.
support system first and foremost. Really identify, who is it that I trust, that I can confide in, that I can call right now, who are on your top 3 list, top 5 list, that you can reach out
Hmm.
to immediately saying, hey, this happened. I'm going through it. I need help. The
Mhm.
second thing is navigating through your personal emotions, and understanding where you are within the situation, whether
Mhm.
that's expressing your anger or that's saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened to me. I don't even know where to start. But your support system is there so they can say, okay, maybe we can call the Red Cross and see what assistance is available for you during this situation. And then the third thing is you really just got to give yourself time, and
Mhm.
not pressing. So I think sometimes when we go through things, we want to fix it right away. And then we don't really deal with whatever needs to be dealt with underneath. And so we just keep going,
Mhm.
going, going. But you got to give yourself some time and some grace to navigate through your journey. And
Mhm.
and when you're not strong, that's why it's important to have your one to two that's there that can be that strength to say, I don't know what to do with this funeral. Like, help me to figure this thing out. You know what I mean? And you can
Mhm.
say, okay, well, let's call so and so, or let's reach out to this resource and be that solid person for them as they're moving through their process.
Mhm.
You are a part of their support system.
Very good. Very good. That was really some good stuff here about this whole journey here. And I know everyone has been through it at one point in their lives. And don't minimize what you've been through. It's real for you. It's real for you. What so I telling people how I actually met you, or I heard of you. I was invited to a self care Sunday by Tanya Coles, and it was awesome. And when I got there, I was like, "Oh wow, this is great!" So much that I started a self care Saturday in the ministry my husband and I have. So you are the inspiration behind our self care Saturday. So ladies, this is the inspiration behind self care Saturday, and so blame her for the workout that I had put them through. I did it all. I did a workout too. We had to actually cut it down to 15 minutes because the women that we in the group that my husband and I have, we all have been diagnosed with um multiple sclerosis for the most part, most of the women, and some other autoimmune diseases. So we have limited mobility. So I had to tell her to get in a chair, and we do our little stretches in a chair. We work it out though, huh, ladies? We get going. So, but so Queens Fellowship Network. That is a group you have started on Facebook. Tell us about that.
So Queen's Fellowship Network is my baby.
Hmm.
So I started Queen's Fellowship Network right during the time where I was going through grieving the loss of my grandmother.
Okay.
And my inspiration for Queen's Fellowship Network was her life, because her and I, we were like Ruth and Naomi, the
Wow.
relationship that we had.
Hmm.
She was a woman of prayer. She was a woman of faith. She was a woman of kindness, and she did whatever she could to help anybody. And so
Hmm.
I always shared that my goal in life is to be a part of her legacy. And
Okay.
so she was the inspiration for really starting that network, which started off as a small group. We had a group that was in Hampton Roads, a group that was in Richmond, and a group that was in Chester, Virginia. And so I pretty much traveled between the three areas once a month, met with these women and supported them. We had different workshops and sessions and spiritual guidance and support, Bible study groups, and things of that nature. And so as the pandemic has come around, we've kind of shifted gears. And so we do things such as the Self Care Sunday, and one of our tenets is self care. We have a mentoring group for girls and women, and we call that Thrive. And so we're in the process of launching some initiatives with that. We also have a small group Bible study that meets twice a month on second and fourth Tuesdays at 6:30. And then we have some other things that we're working on as well. But the goal is to bring women together to build self confidence, to build the kind of toolkit so that people can learn how to take care of themselves better,
Hmm.
and then to also work on the areas of self-discipline. And so a lot of our posts within the group are related to those three themes, and we still work to, kind of build women up. And I always say I want every space that a Queen's Fellowship Network event is held to be a safe space where women from all walks of life can come in and be their authentic self with no judgment, and be in a space where they can thrive and learn how
Mhm.
to thrive and not just survive. Another thing that's important for that network is that many of the women that are a part of that network are in leadership. Many of the women that are in that network are either CEOs or mothers or wives or women who lead ministries or women who run, you know, organizations and things like that. And so that is a space for us to let our hair down and
Mhm.
to be our authentic sister self with other people of like minds. And so I have an amazing team that has been working with me to build that. And we're in the process of doing some new things. So we'll have some great things coming down the road as we move
Mhm.
forward. I'm super excited to hear that you have instituted Self Care Saturday.
Yeah.
It's something I believe in wholeheartedly. And I
Mhm.
have been able to benefit from implementing a lot of different things within our Self Care Sunday too.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing, and I find that I'm still learning and still growing in it, but we've only had a few, but just how to navigate it, how to do things, and to take care of ourselves, like you said, is really important for all women, but especially the women dealing with already autoimmune diseases and mobility issues and taking medications, and believe me, my husband and I, we teach healing as well, and implementing healing, and because we don't just deal with that, but we deal with that on top of everyday stuff, with grief, with trauma, with negative thoughts. And as Joyce Meyer, that's one of my favorite people, stinking thinking, just I love me some Joyce Meyer. She's excellent. So I show videos of that, and we just try to enjoy ourselves. And you I wanted to tell you that, but I never really got to tell you that you being on Self-Care Sunday inspired me to have the Self-Care Saturdays, and it's just been amazing so far. So good. So I'm really excited about that. So let's get to this book now. Guys, I said a key word in the beginning of this broadcast, and if you weren't on, I am so sorry. So, but if you were on, the key word, if you remember the key word, I want you to post it right now. Put it in the comments right now if you heard the key word. Let's see who remembers the key word. It was a while ago. So, oh, okay, Sheila. Sheila, bam! She's like joy. Ah, yes. So Sheila wins a copy of, and it's right here, From Grief to Greatness. Yay! Yay. Oh, Connie, I wish you would have done it earlier. So you did get the right answer, but I'm so sorry. uh, but I think how we're doing it is Miranda is going to, when you get your copies in, or what have you, and you'll sign a copy, and I'll pay for it, and then I'll give you the address, and she'll send it off. So that is awesome. Yay. Thank you so much. And so how are people going to get in touch with you? How can they reach out to you?
Okay, you can follow me on Facebook at Verinda
Hmm.
K. Cobbs. My page, as name as is written here. You can also follow me on Instagram at Arise, Arise,
Hmm.
Queen V. So that's my Instagram handle. And then my website is www.ariseandshine.com.
Right there, arise and shine. Don't forget the two A's, people. Don't forget the two A's there, and arise and shine.com. Yes. Wow. So she has her book, and here is the information on the book here. If you see, it was released, well, just a week ago, about, right? Like a
Mhm.
week ago. It's on Amazon, and here is her Cash App, PayPal information right here. And it's worth the read. I'm telling you right now, it's worth the read. I actually read this book today, and it's an easy read. It's a good read, and you'll really benefit from it. Take your time though, and just get into it and get all the nuggets and everything that you can from it. It's very, very good and very inspirational. And she tells her story in there, and you'll enjoy it. Oh wow. So, Miss Miranda, this was amazing. Thank you so much for saying yes and being my guest. You really shined a light on, the effects of grief, and gave us your journey. And it was just great to have you on today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And as you kind of navigate through building your ministry or your business, let me know if there's any support I can provide. But I'm
Mhm.
super honored and humbled to be here and grateful.
Thank you so much, everyone. Ladies, listen. So don't forget this Saturday is Self-Care Saturday, June 19th, 11, and we will have guest speaker Lady Rena Carter, Lady Rena Reed Carter. She will be our guest speaker, and she's going to just motivate us and inspire us, as is the tagline to Christina Nelson Show. And guys, don't forget tomorrow, Pastor Eric and I will be hosting the first night of the All Things Relationship Conference. We will be the hosts starting, I think it's at 7 p.m. tomorrow. So I put the flyer up, and you'll look on her Facebook page, Rejoice Essential Magazine page, and the Kimberly Moses channel. We will be the host tomorrow, starting tomorrow at 7 p.m. My husband and I co-authored a book called All Things Relationship. And so we are excited, and we are talking about our ministry and how God brought us together. My husband and I, we both were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so we are together, and we have a purpose, and together we reach out to people who also have the same thing going on, and minister to them, and minister healing as well to them. So that's what we got going on. So guys, don't forget. And everyone, God bless you. You have a wonderful, 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 wonderful week, rest of the week. Don't forget tomorrow. And once again, thank you, and shout out to our guest tonight, Miss Verenda K. Cobbs. God bless you all, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Good night, everybody.